We're waiting on one more board member.
No, you have.
I think she might be getting on now.
You have four, Gwen. There are four of you: you, Brian, Kai, and Tia Luttrell.
Justin, is that you?
It is. How are you doing?
We don't
Good
have
morning,
anyone
Miss
else.
Gwen.
Okay, I can hear
Miss
now.
Gwen. Miss
Yes.
Gwen. This is Board Member McCormick. I've checked in. You're ready. We're ready to begin. I've checked in already. I don't think you
Okay.
could hear me though.
Okay, so we've already did the morning. The welcome to the Nevada State Board.
No, President Primo, I think you can call the meeting to order now.
Oh, okay. Good morning. This is I'm Board Member Bramo. Today is May 10th, 2021, Nevada State Board Cosmetology meeting. The time is 9:08. Can I have roll call from board members, please?
Board Member McCormick, present.
Board Member Baltazar, present.
One more board member. I think you need to maybe take your phone off, your computer off mute. Can I go ahead and introduce board member Stanton? Can you hear us?
Guy, you'll need to unmute your mic to be able to speak.
It actually looks like she might have left. She might be having some technical difficulty.
Okay, well, take a deep breath. Okay, she's back. I just sent her a message. Okay, can we get a check-in, board member?
Hi, Stanton, board member.
Can I have staff for roll call, please?
Gary Landry, Executive Director, here.
Lisa Nguyen, Compliance Specialist.
Maggie Adams, Compliance Specialist.
Justin Taruk, Deputy Attorney General.
We have any other staff from the south, any staff from the north? Okay, we'll go on to agenda item, which is the mission statement. The mission of the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of those that obtain cosmetology related services through the delivery of quality testing, licensing, inspection, education services, that focus on consumer protection. This is the time where anyone that would like from the public to make a comment, and the comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. They can't be voted on, but it could be items from the agenda or items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anyone that would like to make a comment before we go to the action items? This is the time to actually make a comment, because once things are voted on, if there's a comment, it's after the fact. So that if you have any comments, this is the time to make the comment. Okay, so no comments. Agenda item number D, a proposed modification to NAC 644A.618. Okay, I'm getting lost here. Hold on. So the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology is seeking to modify the current language of the NAC 644A.618 to allow cosmetology students to earn practical hours remotely outside of a licensed cosmetology establishment in the times of emergency as declared by the governor, and upon majority vote of the board. Any remote practice would be limited to work on mannequins. Board members, were you able to look at the proposed permanent regulation language? Director Landry, can you speak a little bit more in depth about the language, please?
Sure. The language changed in the regulations would be two partial sentences, actually. The first is to say that except in a state of emergency, as declared by the governor and upon a majority vote of the board, students shall not practice at home or in a cosmetological establishment and shall not give demonstrations other than those required of them by the School of Cosmetology at the location of the school or while on a field trip supervised by instructors of the school. So the part that we're adding is except in a state of emergency as declared by the governor and upon a majority vote of the board. That's what's being added to the first one. What sentence is added as subsection A under that section 3 would be, should the board allow practice at home, such practice is limited solely to practice on a mannequin. So it's not when you're doing practical applications of practice in the home, you would not be doing it on another student or on a person. You'd be doing it on a mannequin. So those are the two sentences. That's the only thing that's being changed. And if those two sentences are approved, that would then move on towards the LCB. We'd give them the sentences that we need to have added, and then we could have them put that in and bring it before the commission, the legislative commission, to have them rule on it.
Okay, so.
President Bramo, this is Justin. May I just interject one comment, though?
Go right ahead, Justin. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. And then board members, just so you guys know, if you guys do approve this to go forward to LCB will assign it to an attorney over on their side, just to make sure that everything is allowed under your Practice Act, and that you guys, just to double check everything, that you guys have the authority to make this regulation. LCB's counsel also may tweak the language that we submit to them today, but before anything gets finalized, they'll submit any of the modifications to you guys to have to vote again to submit to them. So that's how the process kind of works in a nutshell.
Okay, so I think I have a question, Board Member Bramo. With this moving forward, are we approving today? Because I want to be clear. I want to be clear on what we're approving. I think it's important for all the schools that's attending online too as well today. Are we approving this just to move forward, that is in the regulation in case of a disaster or declared emergency? Or are we moving forward approving the whole program that can be utilized in the case of an emergency?
This is Justin, Madam President, for the record. What you guys are approving today is for the submission to go forward, not for it to actually be in effect today, because it's not into effect until LCB Commission approves it. So what you're doing today is you're approving for this to go forward with the process, not to allow the schools themselves to use this regulation today. It's more of the procedure to allow them eventually to use it.
And
Okay,
this
so
is,
okay, go ahead, Director Landry.
this is Executive Director Landry. I just want to say that also no one can utilize this unless it's a majority vote of the board. So when a state of emergency is declared, the board would have to call a meeting and a majority of the board members would have to agree that they're going to allow distance learning on practical. You already allowed distance learning on theory because that's allowed, but this would allow distance learning on the practical aspects of it. But it takes a majority vote of the board as stated in the regulations.
Okay, so another question, I'm just thinking so that we can be on one accord. Now that it's still considered a state of an emergency, because the governor haven't just completely lifted. So for those that's still utilizing the distant learning from home, what is it that they need to do, Director Landry, to move forward with? Because I know it's been over a year. It's been over a year, and we've been on maybe just right at a year for the distant learning. And I think my concern too is that as we move forward with this, is that we have a set limit amount of hours that could be done from home under an emergency.
That would have to be on your vote when you're voting on allowing someone to practice distance learning on the practical. That's not theory, but on the practical part of it, you could limit the amount of hours that is done if you put that in your motion when you pass it at the board meeting. Justin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that can be done you'd have to put that in the motion when you vote to approve to use distance learning for practical training.
This is Justin, Madam President, for the record. Mr. Landry is correct. So subsequently, right, so if the board and LCB eventually approves this regulation, as the terms of the regulation state, it says upon a majority vote of the board. I would suspect that at the time that the board makes that vote, they can add the terms of how many hours you guys want to limit the practical to. Similar to like what you guys did with the theory last year, where you were like, I want only this number for these number of weeks or whatever you guys voted for. You could do the same to that. What the regulation you have before you, it's simply just saying that if there is an emergency and if the board does vote, then they could do theory. I think if the board can recall, there was a limitation right now in your current regulations that didn't prohibit theory, but there was a specific prohibition that said you can't do any practical. So this is, I believe, the regulation that was brought up to try to alleviate that issue in the future.
Exactly. Okay, I understand that. Thanks, Justin, for clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I think we can call for, any other board members have any comment before I call for a vote?
Bryan Baltazar, no, not really. I mean, I wish we could have it say or upon a majority of the vote of the board, but of course that would give us more autonomy than we're able. But other than that, everything's perfect. I'd like to move ahead with this.
I think I'm kind of a little bit confused with you just, can you again?
No, I was just saying, I wish it could say or upon a majority of the vote of the board, but of course that's not possible because we can't give ourselves that kind of autonomy.
No, you can it can say that.
No, I think
this is the time. right, Director Landry? This is the time that he make the changes before it goes to the LCB.
Right, this Executive Director Landry speaking. The thing that I think that Mr. Baltazar is trying to state is he would like the board to be able to just implement it whether it's emergency or not. That upon a majority of the vote of the board, you could implement this practice, but you can't. It has to be an emergency situation before it can be put into place. And that's what it states in section 3.
That
Okay,
is
so
correct.
this
I
is,
guess,
this is bringing up another question. Go ahead, Baltazar, because now I have another question. Go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead. I was saying it in jest, but now I guess we're delving into it.
No, I think you're kind of like on the right track because I think there are schools, and I know across the country too, Director Landry, that want to implement, some type of distant learning in their institutions. What is it that we do to assist them and possibly maybe not practical, but for theory? Is there any way that the board could put that in the regulation?
This is Executive Director Landry. Not so much in the regulation. We'd have to go back to the law and change the law and state exactly what you want to have allowed by the schools in teaching theory using distance learning. We can do that
Okay.
next session and get that in, and we can investigate it and tell you what the language would have to be. But that would have to be, the theory would have to come in the law, not the regulation. You can do pretty much anything in emergency situations because those don't come up that often, but to have it practiced when there's no emergency, you'd have to have that in the law, change the law.
Okay. All right, so any other questions or comments for our call for a vote to propose permanent regulation change language? Can I get a motion, please?
Bryan Baltazar, I motion to accept the change language on this NAC.
Yeah, sorry, Member Baltazar, this is Justin, and just for your motion, just to confirm it, it's to also allow the board staff to submit this to LCB, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Can you restate your motion, please?
Bryan Baltazar, I motion to approve the language of this NAC and to approve staff presenting this or turning this into LCB.
This is Ty Stanton. I second that motion.
Member Stanton, sorry, this is Justin for the record. You broke up a little bit. Was that a second?
Yes, I'm sorry, my signal's going in and out. I have to try to step away to try to reach it. It's being weird over here. And I'm coming through a little bit more.
I think we got a second.
Okay.
Board Member Stanton, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but you can't hear me, it seems like.
Oh, okay, can you just, because I wanted to say you second that motion.
I did.
Okay, we can hear you now. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So now we're going to discuss the potential for that small business impact survey that went out. Is Leah available?
Leah was called out on a medical emergency. She won't be at the meeting today, but I can discuss the voting that went on with the small business impact.
Okay,
I think.
Go right ahead, Director Landry. I apologize for that.
Oh, no problem. Let me call that up. Okay, we sent out a small business impact survey in January of 2021 and asked a variety of questions. The first question, do you anticipate a regulation allowing for remote practical learning in times of emergency having an adverse economic effect upon your business? 58% or 7 responses said no. 33%, 4 respondents said yes, and 1 response said it was unknown. The second question, Do you anticipate a regulation allowing remote practical learning in times of emergency having any beneficial effect on your business? 7 responses or 58% said yes. 4 responses, 33% said no. 4 responses, 33% said unknown, and 1 response, 8.3%, said no. Next question. Do you anticipate any indirect adverse effect on your business? 7 responses or 58% said no. 3 responses, 25% said yes, and 2 responses or 16% said unknown. Next question. Do you anticipate any indirect beneficial effects upon your business? 5 responses or 41% said unknown. 4 responses or 33% said no. 3 responses or 25% said yes. That was the results of the survey, and that's the only questions that we asked of the small business participants or the schools, and that's the way it stands. So if anyone has any questions, I can answer those. But other than that, that's what's going on with the survey.
Okay, so thank you, Director Landry. I think I'm pretty clear on the surveys, but what I think I need some more clarity on is the let me get to them. The comments, the section. So I guess it's the long, what do you call it? Would we call it the long form survey responses?
Yes, where they can make comments if they, in addition to answering the questions, they can make comments after to explain what they were meaning in their response.
So before we, okay, let me just be clear on this. The next board meeting, when the full board meeting, right, approves this language, that's when the time that we can add to those motions. Is that what you're telling me?
You won't add to the motion. If you approve you approved one already. If you approve this one, then that's going to LCB and it's moving forward. We would have, we'd have it come back to us from LCB and we could discuss the changes that LCB put on it if they make any changes. But you're approving to send it as is to LCB and get it moving forward. That's the regulation change. The law change would have to occur next legislative session 2 years from now to make the theory training available outside of an emergency situation.
I get that part. I understand that. Thank you. But I wonder now that I'm clear that once it gets to LCB, there's gonna be no changes. We don't want it to go back and forth. So can we just go ahead in this survey response? Because what my concern is, Director Landry, I don't want this to get slipped through the crack. I don't want, as a board member, to see us pass a regulation without being clear of what needs to occur. So if we pass the long form surveys, we're basically passing what?
You're just telling us for the board staff to submit that to LCB, so LCB can see the documentation that we collected during when we did the surveys. That's it. We're not telling them to approve the surveys or anything like that. It just shows that we sequestered information from the businesses affected and they responded. Most times in most questions they responded the way we thought they would. It's going to benefit their business. But the LCB would take this in and evaluate it as part of the overall impact to the small businesses.
Okay, I'm clear with that. Okay, so once we pass this, can I make sure that on the next board meeting that we have on the agenda the set procedures that can be done at home on practical? And the amount of hours? Can I have board staff, please, to do some research and then the board votes on it?
Yes, we can do that. You won't put those board hours into place now, but it would come at a time when there's an emergency and you're voting on it. Then you could say, we're going to take the recommendation of staff that they prepared for us, and we'll only allow X number of hours of practical training remotely.
Can we put that on the next agenda, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, President Bramo, this is Justin, just to confirm with you though. That would come down later down the road, just because this regulation that we're trying to propose to LCB isn't set in stone yet. So we'd have to get the green light from LCB and get it filed with the Secretary of State and everything like that under NRS 233B before we can actually have the board vote on any of it.
I know we already voted on it, Justin. No, I'm just saying to you, we're gonna be voting on it today, and this is like an act of an emergency. So that LCB, that's kind of stuff that they want to see that all the organizations have those things in place. So I know that that's not gonna take a whole long time because it's a NAC. You know, it's just a short process to that. But what I'm just asking for is that we can either get together with the schools and we can already have something, because if the governor says in July or August that now we have a new state of an emergency, what are we gonna do? We're gonna be still talking about it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, just wanted to clarify it. So
Yeah,
I think
that's
we're on the
all.
same
That's
page.
all. I just want to make sure that we all clear. So
Right.
when there is a state of an emergency, because we don't know what happened, we just, I mean, now everything is all over the place. But I just wanted to be clear what it's going to look like. So when if we ever have to have another state of an emergency, then we are all clear. We don't have to come back. All we have to do is vote on it and just keep moving.
Understood. Thanks, President Bramo.
Okay. All right, I think that was it for me. Do we have any other board members that have any comments? And then the last to that, Director Landry was talking about I'm trying to get back to that other form. Director Landry.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to get back. I can't get back in here to the other form, but there was something else we were supposed to talk about on that proposed language for a vote today. It was the third one. It was 3 of them. I have to start all over on my computer.
Okay. We've got the vote on, not the vote, the votes from the businesses I went over. I can go over the proposed changes that we wrote to the LCB when we're telling them what we're doing, and it just talks about what the proposed amendment would do and how it'd be utilized and all. So that's basically all it is, and that's just just what was done. Let me see, I can find the wording on the notes. I could read off the notes if you wanted.
Well, I mean, it's up to the other board members. Have you had a chance to review this?
President, this is Cosmetology. Can you hear me pretty good? Am I coming through?
Well,
Not really still.
kind of, sort of.
And the notes are not, we're not going to be changing any of the notes, because the notes are the ones given by the people who responded. All we're going to be doing is turning this over to LCB if you direct us to. And if you want the regulations changed, that's part of the process. You have to turn over all the notes and everything that we've collected. We have to turn that over to LCB.
No, I think that sounds fair. I mean, that's the process, I guess. But the notes were fair. I mean, there were some that, but they basically overall fair. That's all. That's all I have, and that's Board Member Stanton. Go right ahead.
Can you hear me better? Not really. Okay, I'm gonna log out and log back in because I do have regarding the practical.
Board Member Stanton, can you call in?
Yes, okay.
Okay, then that way we'll hear you. We can hear you better. Can you call in?
President Bramo,
Yes.
would it be okay if I make a motion? If you're comfortable, I think I would be comfortable making a motion that we submit the results of this exam to LCB for, for review. I don't know if there was anything that you wanted to add to that, but if that seems like an appropriate motion, I'd be more than happy.
I think it's an appropriate motion. I just wanted to hear what Board Member Stanton had to say, but I'm comfortable with it as well.
Board
Okay,
members,
sure.
this is Justin, sorry, member T. Latrell. Before you make that motion, I think we should wait for member Stanton to
Right.
come back just for quorum.
Of course,
Thank you.
of course.
Before we make a motion, can we hear anything from any of the schools about the small business impact statements? Would anybody want to make a comment? Is that possible, Justin?
President Bramo, I would wait until member Stanton comes back just because that way you have quorum again, because without member Stanton, you've lost quorum.
Okay.
Would it be possible to specifically hear from those that indicated that they would suffer adverse consequences or effects? Because that's kind of where my interest lies, is that I can't really see where in comments it really delved into why it would adversely affect the individual school.
You can ask that question too as well, Justin, once we get a quorum, right?
That's correct. My only hesitation is because member Stanton is gone, there's no more quorum, but you guys can freely ask if you want any supplemental comments from anybody who asked negatively on why they said that. But again, I would just wait until member Stanton comes back.
Can we get a number
that's
from
fine.
member Stanton? She said the number is not working. Can we get a number to her?
I'll check the number and make sure that's correct.
Okay. Okay, she has it. Director Landry, can you let her in?
She is in. She'll have to mute her. She'll have to get out of log out of the computer login. So she'll have to leave the meeting from her computer and be on her phone to avoid that feedback.
She needs to log out computer.
Perfect. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Geez.
Disaster. Okay. So I wanted just to make sure, because when I'm reading in the comments that we were discussing a little bit earlier before the disruption, I apologize. Are we looking at those comments, and does everybody understand that we're just talking about the emergency part, and that in the future we can talk about permanent? But me reading those side comments, it seemed to allure to the almost like there needs to be an understanding. We need to get the details down, even regarding the hours, the distance learning and all that fun stuff regarding the emergency first, just to have that completed as well. And that's really important before we discuss permanent, which we're not saying that's not a discussion. We just need to finalize the process. And that's one of the things I wanted to highlight. I just wanted to make that statement on the side. So should that be some level of verbiage, because my understanding is that's already written, that's only emergency focused.
This is Executive Director Landry. Ms. Stanton, you are correct. The thing that we're going to do after all this is completed is go back and review the laws as they pertain to the actual regulations for distance learning. That'll be a separate issue. This provision is only for emergency, and it's only for the emergency practical training. So that's why there's no hours or anything like that. That's something the board would recommend or vote on when it comes up if an emergency is declared. And as President Bramo said, we'll discuss the number of hours at the next meeting, the next board meeting, and you can come up with whatever hours. We'll have that set. And then when another emergency is declared, or if the emergency is extended, the current emergency is extended, then we would be able to take and implement those hours at that time.
Exactly. I just wanted that on record, Executive. Thank you so much for the breakdown, because as I'm reading over, I think that sometimes with so much going on and how quickly things change so quickly for us in 2020 regarding COVID, it was very important that we have everything in order and we have to follow process. And so publicly, I just wanted to make the statement is we are not ignoring anyone of any kind, but this is process. And so when we're looking at emergencies versus permanent, I don't want anyone thinking that we are ignoring those concerns or changes that would like to be implemented in the futures. We're just saying that it's important that things get done emergency-wise effectively. Reading those comments, it just seemed to be some level of confusion a little bit, not on all standards, but just on some. And so I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're gonna go ahead and then we'll be able to talk to the those that want to speak during the public comment, so we can be clear on when we have the next board meeting, what we're going to be voting on there. We maybe can possibly participate in some type of input. But I would like to go ahead and have Board Member McCormick go back and call your motion.
This is Board Member McCormick. I would like to make a motion that we take the results from the survey and submit them to the LCB committee for review.
Can I get a second, please?
This is Kai Stanton. I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're now at the point of the comments from the general public for discussion only. We'll limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments could be any item that was on the agenda or a future agenda. We can take no action today. But I would, as a board member, like to hear from some of those participants in our meeting today, so that gives us a good kind of solid idea of what we're gonna like anticipate voting on the next board meeting, because I would like for us to have it already set in stone what the practical hours will be in case of an emergency and what that curriculum will possibly look like. So that's what my request is for the next agenda. But I would like to hear from those that would like to speak. You can unmute yourself and then I could see you when you do. I think this is kind of like the time to have a little input on what that practical training is gonna amount to far as hours and look like.
Hi, Gwen. It's Lou from Euphoria Institute.
Hi, Lou.
Good morning. Well, I think that kind of how we're doing it right now, that 50-50, where it's 50% online and 50% in on the campus. So if we were to go into a state of emergency that happened from March until June, for us, we learned that we needed to slow the pace of progression. So even though we were allowed to do 30 hours, we lessened it only to 20. And I think that, you know, I would say then 50% combination of theory, practical could be done online in the case of an emergency. So for us, that would have meant, you know, 20 hours a week of theory and online from March until June. And then in June, when we came back to the campus, we were just 50% online, 50% at the campus. And so teachers were doing, you know, that 50%, they're doing all their theory, but I think if we could add practical that would be better too. Maybe not so much if they can come to campus, but for the teachers to teach the practical. Like kind of like a preview, if you would, to what's going to happen when they come to the class. So maybe a nail instructor teacher would demonstrate a manicure, you know, via online, so that this way, when they came to the campus, you know, then they would be ready to do their practical. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but I think what my question was going to be next for you was, when you say 20 hours for theory, do you mean like some additional hours for practical, or you mean like get 20 hours a week?
No, I mean, just for us, I was just giving our example. I would just say at this point, if it's in the state of an emergency where we're only online, we can't do 40 hours a week because you're going to complete before you know, your hours
Okay.
are going to
I was thinking the same thing. That's why I wanted to ask you that.
So
Right.
we kind of, what we did was we slowed the pace of progression down to 50% in all our programs. So with that said, it would be nice to be able to teach some practical at that time, but I wouldn't say in addition to, I'm saying all encompassing, all at the same time, you know, just with that 20 hours.
Okay. Thank you, Lou.
You're welcome.
Do we have anyone else that would like to make a comment about the practical hours and the different types of procedures that could be possibly allowed?
Yeah, I'll go and speak up. Hi, I'm Brent
Okay.
from Palma to the School, Las Vegas. Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday.
Yes. I'm grateful to actually have this meeting, you know, because it has been I think a lot of trial and error this last year, not really knowing what's next, but, you know, just trying to plan. And I feel like being able to incorporate, you know, practical with, you know, because our students are still on a hybrid schedule, you know, but in the future, being able to incorporate some type of practical to keep them a little bit more engaged, because, you know, I feel like it's a little difficult to just sit on a Zoom call when it's just like a look and learn. And I think it would hold the students a little bit more accountable if we could actually have practical at home where they would be on camera, you know, busy, you know, doing hands-on. So, you know, for us last year, you know, I know you guys had approved the 30% or the 30 hours a week. And then we were able to go to full-time, you know, full 40 hours a week or whatever they were contracted at. And we then ended up having to, we did about 6 weeks of a boot camp when they came back into the school, you know, when we opened back up in June. So, you know, I just feel like it is a hands-on industry, and you know, I don't want them to suffer from not, you know, getting enough hands-on. So, but yeah, so like I said, I'm just grateful to have this conversation. It would be amazing to, I agree. I think maybe 50%, so maybe 25 hours or 20 hours of theory and then 20 hours of practical for like 50%, you know, total that they could earn up to. So.
Thank you, Brent.
Yeah.
Do we have anyone else that would like to share what they maybe possibly envision the practical online learning looks like the next time we have a state of emergency? Because I think it was just trial and error on all of our parts with the amount of hours that the students were receiving for theory, because then they maxed out the theory hours, and then you have to come back and work even harder because they, just did theory only and not enough practical. And that, I think that's some of my concern and some of the reason why I would like to see the hours voted on, so that in case the governor, we don't know what it looks like tomorrow, declare another emergency, we'll already have it in place, what's going to be required of us. Okay, anybody else? Any comments from any other board members?
Hi, this is Garrett De Simone from Southeast.
Hi, Ms. Jan.
Hi, from Clark County School District. I would just like to add some input that I think having some limited hands-on does keep the students engaged. And with the technology of today, I think that that is a possibility. And of course, the hands-on, I would think, would be those entry-level skills anyway that could be easily monitored. I mean, a simple manicure, a simple haircut, a blow dry, doing some hairstyling. I think it's almost necessary to keep the students on track and, once again, to keep them engaged. And so I think if there was maybe a 25 to 30 hour limit per week and it was 50-50, I think that that would be a very fair number of hours across the board and would support the students as they move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't think any other comments before. Any comments from any of the board members? I'm going to go down to the next agenda item.
Madam President.
Yes.
Madam President, this is Kai Stanton. I don't know. This is just a statement for future. I would love to see, just like we had the survey, I would love to see some form of survey regarding how the students feel and how this is going on. I would like to pass this forward for emergency for sure, but I'm talking about on a permanent level. If the conversation we have in the future is permanent and the board is comfortable with that, I would love to also, I don't know if the board gets involved in that or is that per school? I guess that's a question for them, to see the retention, the passing rate of the testing, how comfortable the students are, how successful they are with holding a job, going over, and how it really affects the workforce. So I would love to see some level of how it affects the community on their success rate for a permanent conversation in the future, not for emergencies. I would love to go ahead and pass this forward for emergency purposes, but this would just be great groundwork to utilize that information for a permanent level for the conversation in the future. That's all. Thank you, Madam President. I don't know if that's possible. I guess the question is that possible? And is that something the board would like to see as well?
I just have a comment to that. I think the board staff could possibly do that for us. When the participants, the graduates come in to sign up or to take their test, can we put together Director Landry, since we're just walking, kind of moving out of distant learning now, once the governor does 100%. So can we get a survey from the students when they come in to take their exam about their success with distant learning at their school?
If I may interject, I think every school does it slightly differently. So I think it might be a more effective exit interview type of situation from each school.
I think it'll be better coming from than at the board office and not at the school level.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, I do concur with that. I would like to have this information directly inputted straight from the board office. I'm not suggesting otherwise. It's just nice to have all that information collected together. I know sometimes when students graduate, they may or may not take the, so it might be kind of hard to gather up information that way, but we know for sure it's pretty accurate. They're in the board room, X, Y, and Z. So yes, I would love to have that in the office. Thank you.
Does that make more sense, Maggie?
We will do it any way you wish.
Thank you.
May I make a comment? This is Garrett De Simone. I think the results, as they come in as a graduate to take the test, one could be skewed by the result of the test. So those passing, of course, are going to think that there has been no impact. And those that don't pass are going to blame it on that, because why not blame someone else instead of yourself? And really, I don't think that we would know what the impact is until they've been out into industry. I mean, I think that's when you really see what the impact of all of this is. And I think that's what's occurring right now, even in the normal workplace, is now that we're going back to somewhat normalcy, I think now we're really truly seeing the impact of how this whole thing has played out in getting employees and the employees that have entered into other job markets, and they've forgotten how to do their job in some cases. And so
Well, maybe that could be, Ms. Jan, that could be possibly a survey sent to the new licensees.
I think that would be better than adding it to the day of the exam.
Okay.
If you want accuracy.
I agree with Jan 100%.
I do too.
100%. And another way just to determine how successful online is versus on campus is simply attendance percentage. And our attendance percentage improved, I think, by 4% when we were online. And I think it was, during COVID, the students were going to school any longer. So moms, had to stay home, take care of the kids, and so on and so forth. So I think it would be difficult to have an accurate picture of how it affected long term. I think that it's a unique situation, and I don't support that inquiry because I feel like it is not going to be accurate for so many reasons. But the only thing that would be not subjective would be attendance percentage and whether a student attended more regularly when they were online versus on campus. Now if we choose to move forward, then I think it would be fair. But I agree with Jan. There's an unusual thing happening right now with anxiety about going back into the workforce, even into public. There's help wanted everywhere. Every place is understaffed. So I think that COVID has affected us in ways that we don't know yet or haven't come to the surface yet. So I don't think I would be supportive of a survey coming right out after they tested. In addition to that, not everybody tests right away. So you can get a survey from somebody who graduated 6 months ago, or a survey from somebody who graduated a year ago or 2 weeks ago. So it's very inaccurate in my opinion. Thank you.
Board member, sorry to cut this, interject on this. If you guys want to have a detailed conversation on this, I would recommend, like Member Stanton said, maybe just put it on an agenda item and have a more detailed discussion on it. So that way everyone from the public can make their comments during that discussion. I'd hate for you guys to have a discussion or deliberation on this right now just because it's not on the agenda for today.
Right, and I would like to probably see it on the agenda because we're gonna have to come up with some type of survey information, Lou, whether it be surveying, because what we have to remember, as school owners as well, we have to be able to give legislation the right information. And if they come and we're asking for some type of permanency, they're gonna be like, okay, long-term effect. How's it affecting the students? And we still have to be able to come up with, just like to even change the NAC, we have to show LCB that all these surveys and all this information went into the impact, the good or the bad. You know, so you have to be able to show it. So we have to have some tools to measure how successful that student is doing half of their learning at home.
Well, I don't have a
Right.
problem with that. I just don't think doing it when they go to take the test is appropriate.
Right, maybe not when they take their test,
Yeah.
but we got to figure out, they're already
Sure.
nervous enough, but I'm just thinking, just trying to
100%.
figure out a way. But
Thank you,
like
Madam
Justin said,
President.
we'll get this on the
Yeah.
agenda. I know direct,
Thank you.
board member Stan.
I'm just asking for it to be on the agenda. And I kind of wanted to put that out there to see, was that even worth putting on the agenda? Would that be a conversation? So I'm glad that it is. That is absolutely really good, because I do want to know how this affects everyone equally, and what Lou said was great information, and the other school owners. So yes, I would like to have that on the agenda for further details, and to work things out so we can have accurate information, as someone else stated. Thank you.
Because moving forward, I think we should eventually have some type of, law change with some information and something. We can show long-term, short-term effect. We can show that the students are successfully out there working. We're gonna have to have surveys from them. They're not just gonna want to keep hearing from us. So in
And
order for us
that's my
to
point,
even
absolutely.
think about moving forward with the permanent regulation, we need to have all our ducks in a row. Okay.
Right, right, thank you.
All right. I think we all on the same page, somewhat. So no more comments from board members, right? Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
This is Kai Stanton. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn today's meeting. Thank you.
Can I get a second?
Bryan Baltazar, I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, everybody. See you guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.